Greetings, friends. Welcome to today's devotional. It is Psalm 35, a rather long one, almost 30 verses. So I'm not going to read it, but it is. I invite you to pause the video and read it for yourself. It is going to sound very familiar to you. It is a familiar refrain from David as he is lamenting the fact that people are persecuting him, lying to him, out to get him. They've turned against him, and he is crying out to God, as David does frequently in these Psalms. It is a good reminder for us, though, that in times of trial and trouble and persecution and injustice and the things that we face in this world, that we can and should cry out to God, looking for his help and his support, for him to be our strength and our shield, as has often been written. But one thing that stood out for me in this psalm, and I'll read just a part of it, is verses, where is it? Starting in verse 13. So, but as for me, David writes, when they were sick, I wore sackcloth. I afflicted myself with fasting. I prayed with head bowed on my bosom, as though I grieved for a friend or a brother. I went about as one who laments for a mother, bowed down and in mourning. But at my stumbling, they gathered in glee, and they gathered together against me, ruffians whom I did not know, tore at me without ceasing, and they impiously mocked more and more, gnashing at me with their teeth. So it sounds like what David has experienced is he has been grieving, mourning, praying for people that he didn't even know, who likely were his enemies, out of compassion. And when the tables turned and he was dealing with a trial, they acted differently to him. And this has probably happened to you, as it's happened to most of us in our lives, where we have gone out of our way to be supportive or help people that we know, or even people that we don't know. And when things turn around and we're in need of that, those people don't often always come back and offer the same kind of support and help for us that we gave them. And that can be a very hurtful thing, a very frustrating thing, and a very aggravating thing, something that can be really difficult for us to deal with. And that's just unfortunately the way that human nature is, that people don't always reciprocate when we go out of our way to help or support them financially or with prayer or anything else. And in our time of need, we often wonder where they are. The truth is, though, is that if we are only giving or doing good deeds or things for other people in order to receive in kind from them what we've given them, then if you search through the New Testament and read some of Paul's letters, and I'll paraphrase it, that we're no different than the sinners. If we only do good with the expectation of receiving good in return, then what are we doing? Is it just to get favor back, or are we doing good out of the kindness of our hearts and out of thankfulness for what God has done for us through Jesus Christ? That's the way we should be behaving. We should give and have generous hearts because we have received generously from God all of the blessings that he's given us without us ever deserving them. And he doesn't expect anything back in return from us. He didn't do it so that we would do things for God. It should be done out of the freedom of our own will, but out of thankfulness for what we've done. But like I said, that can be a really difficult thing. The truth is, though, is that God recognizes that in us, and it pleases God when we act in that manner. Loving our enemies is not an easy thing to do, but that's what we're called to do as Christians, that we are to be recipients of grace, but also to be those who distribute grace as abundantly as God has given to us. So when we do that, if we do it for God's praise or glory, then perhaps we're not going to expect it to receive in kind what we've given, and we can know that we've pleased and honored and glorified God through our actions. And that really is something that should fill our hearts and can fill our hearts, to act in kindness towards others just for the sake of God and for what we receive, not to get back from them. That's what grace is, and that's what we've received. So not sure if that's going to be helpful for you all today, but that's where I was going with this devotion. That's what stuck out to me from this very long Psalm 35. So we'll do it again tomorrow. Psalm 36. Blessings to you all. Be safe.